Beloved, many people pray with words, but few pray with power. Many speak to God with their lips, but only some connect with Him through the Spirit. And that is why some believers struggle year after year, while others walk in a realm where impossible miracles become normal. Prayer is not just a religious habit. Prayer is a spiritual law, and praying in the Spirit is not emotional excitement. It is divine alignment. When you learn to pray in the Spirit, you step out of human limitation and enter God's supernatural dimension. The Bible says, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord. That means breakthroughs are not released by effort alone, but by spiritual connection. When you pray in the Spirit, your spirit begins to cooperate with the Holy Spirit. You are no longer praying problems, you are praying solutions. You are no longer begging, you are partnering with heaven. Many believers say, I have prayed, but nothing changed. The truth is this: words alone do not move mountains. Spirit-led prayer does. When you pray in the Spirit, heaven hears clearly. Hell trembles immediately. Your faith is strengthened, your vision becomes clear, and miracles begin to respond. Praying in the Spirit builds an inner image of victory. And once the image is formed in your spirit, reality has no choice but to follow. Before God changes your situation, He first changes your inner world. Beloved, miracles do not come from striving. Miracles flow from abiding. When you walk in the Spirit, you walk in divine timing. You stop forcing doors and start seeing doors open automatically. You stop chasing blessings, and blessings begin to chase you. When you pray in the Spirit, you are no longer operating on human strength. You are stepping into divine power. Many people wake up every morning relying on effort, intelligence, connections, and hard work. They plan, they push, they struggle, and they say, I did my best. But the truth is, your best without God's power will always be limited. Praying in the Spirit shifts you from self-effort to supernatural enablement. It is the moment when heaven begins to cooperate with your life. Think of a mobile phone. No matter how expensive or advanced it is, once the battery is dead, it becomes useless. In the same way, a believer without the power of the Spirit may have education, talent, and good intentions, but no spiritual energy. When you pray in the Spirit, it is like plugging your life into God's power source. Suddenly, strength returns, clarity returns, direction returns. You begin to do things you could never do by yourself. Many people say, I pray every day, but I feel weak. The problem is not prayer, it is how you pray. Words alone can become routine, but Spirit-led prayer ignites power. When you pray in the Spirit, God's power begins working inside you before it works around you. Fear that controlled you for years begins to lose its grip. The habits that once dominated your life begin to break quietly. You don't even know how it happened. You just realize one day, I am no longer the same person. Look at daily life. A small child may struggle to lift a heavy bag, but when the father picks the child up, suddenly the child moves faster, reaches higher, and feels secure. The child didn't gain strength. The father's strength carried them. That is what happens when you pray in the Spirit. You are lifted into God's strength. You move with confidence not because life is easy, but because you are no longer carrying it alone. Praying in the Spirit activates power to face pressure. Think about a person at work who is constantly overlooked, misunderstood, or stressed. Human reaction says, fight back, complain, quit. But Spirit-led prayer releases another kind of power, the power of wisdom, patience, and divine favor. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond spiritually. And often, without forcing anything, situations begin to change. People who ignored you begin to notice you. Doors that were closed begin to open. This power is not loud, but it is unstoppable. It is the power that strengthens a mother who wakes up tired but still smiles for her family. It is the power that helps a student keep believing even after failing an exam. It is the power that enables a person to forgive when everything inside wants revenge. That strength does not come from motivation. It comes from praying in the Spirit. Praying in the Spirit also activates power over circumstances. Many believers try to change their situation before changing their spiritual condition. But when divine power is activated within, circumstances begin to obey. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. You don't fight darkness. You introduce light, and darkness disappears automatically. In the same way, when the Spirit's power is activated, confusion clears, fear retreats, and hope rises. Consider a person facing financial pressure. Bills are piling up, income feels insufficient, and anxiety grows daily. Natural thinking leads to panic. But when that person prays in the Spirit, power replaces panic. Ideas come, discipline grows, unexpected help appears, peace settles in the heart even before money arrives. That peace itself is evidence that divine power is at work. Praying in the Spirit gives power to endure seasons that cannot be escaped. Sometimes God does not remove the storm immediately, but He gives you power to stand in it. You may still face challenges, but they no longer break you. You no longer collapse under pressure. You begin to say, this situation may be strong, but God's power in me is stronger. This power also reshapes how you see yourself. Many people live with hidden insecurity, constantly comparing themselves with others. But when you pray in the Spirit, divine power corrects your identity. You stop seeing yourself as weak, unlucky, or forgotten. You begin to see yourself as someone empowered by God. Confidence grows quietly. You walk differently. You speak differently. You expect good things, not because life is perfect, but because God's power is active in you. Praying in the Spirit activates power that works even when you don't understand what is happening. There are moments in life when words fail, when pain is too deep, or decisions feel too heavy. In those moments, Spirit-led prayer allows God to work beyond your understanding. You may not know what to say, but heaven knows exactly what to do. This is not emotional excitement. This is daily, practical power. Power to wake up and try again. Power to remain honest when shortcuts tempt you. Power to stay hopeful when timelines delay. Power to trust God when answers are silent. When you pray in the Spirit, you are not begging God to act. You are allowing His power to flow through your life continuously. There are moments in life when you kneel to pray and suddenly realize you don't even know what to ask for. Your heart is heavy, your mind is crowded, and words feel too small for the weight you're carrying. You want to pray for relief, for success, for change, but deep inside there is confusion. This is where the Spirit steps in, because God never expected you to understand everything before you pray. He knew there would be seasons where your pain would be real, but your direction unclear. The Spirit helps you pray God's perfect will, because human understanding is limited. We often pray from emotion, urgency, and fear. We pray for what feels right now, not what is right long term. A person may pray desperately for a relationship to work, not realizing that God is trying to protect their future. Another may pray for a door to open, unaware that an open door could lead to years of regret. The Spirit sees what you cannot see and knows what you cannot know. Think of daily life. A child may cry because a parent refuses to give them candy before dinner. The child feels denied, hurt, even ignored. But the parent understands nutrition, timing, and health. In the same way, when you pray without the Spirit's guidance, you may be asking for something that feels good but harms you later. The Spirit aligns your prayer with the wisdom of God, not the impulse of the moment. Many people say, I prayed, but God didn't answer. Often, God answered by redirecting. The Spirit adjusts your prayer so you stop asking for what will drain you and begin asking for what will grow you. This is not rejection, this is protection. When the Spirit helps you pray, your desires slowly change. You stop praying, give me what I want, and start praying, give me what will make me whole. Consider someone choosing a career path. Human logic says, choose what pays more. Fear says, choose what feels safer. But the Spirit may guide prayer toward purpose instead of pressure. Suddenly, peace follows a decision that doesn't make sense on paper. That peace is not emotion, it is confirmation that your prayer has aligned with God's will. The Spirit also helps when life becomes overwhelming. There are days when stress from family, work, finances, and expectations collide all at once. You sit quietly and say, God, I don't even know what to pray. That is not weakness, that is honesty. And in that moment, the Spirit carries your unspoken burden to God. Your silence becomes communication. Your tears become language. This is powerful because God's perfect will is not always comfortable, but it is always purposeful. The Spirit helps you pray beyond comfort into transformation. Many people pray only for ease, but the Spirit teaches you to pray for strength. Many pray for speed, but the Spirit teaches you to pray for timing. Many pray for escape, but the Spirit teaches you to pray for growth. Daily lie proves this again and again. A person prays for quick success, but the Spirit guides them into patience, discipline, and preparation. Later, when success comes, it lasts. Another prays for instant healing, but the Spirit leads them into healthier habits, emotional healing, and deeper faith. The miracle may not look dramatic, but it is complete. When the Spirit helps you pray, your prayer life becomes less stressful. You stop forcing words and start trusting guidance. You stop repeating anxious thoughts and start releasing surrendered prayers. You realize that prayer is not about convincing God. It is about aligning yourself with what God already knows is best. This alignment produces peace even before answers arrive. You may still be waiting, but your heart is calm. You may still be in transition, but your spirit is steady. That calmness is evidence that you are praying God's will. When prayer is aligned, panic disappears because deep inside you know, I am being guided, even if I don't yet see the outcome. The Spirit also corrects selfish prayers without shaming you. You may start praying for recognition, and the Spirit gently redirects you toward humility and service. You may pray for control, and the Spirit leads you toward trust. This correction is not harsh, it is loving. Like a GPS rerouting you when you miss a turn, the Spirit doesn't stop the journey, He adjusts the direction. Even in relationships, this guidance is crucial. You may pray for someone to change, but the Spirit helps you pray for wisdom, boundaries, and clarity instead. Suddenly you stop begging for attention and start walking in self-respect. You stop forcing connection and start attracting healthy relationships. This is the Spirit shaping your prayer to protect your heart. When you allow the Spirit to help you pray, your life becomes less about struggle and more about flow. Decisions feel lighter. Waiting feels meaningful. Even unanswered prayers feel purposeful. You begin to trust that if something didn't happen, it didn't fail. It was filtered. The Spirit never leads you away from God's best. He leads you deeper into it, even when the path feels unfamiliar, even when your emotions resist, even when logic questions, even when others don't understand, because perfect will is not always obvious, but it is always intentional. Faith does not grow by information alone. Faith grows by connection. Many people listen to sermons, read scriptures, and collect inspirational quotes, yet inside they still feel fragile when pressure comes. The reason is simple. Faith is not strengthened by hearing only, but by communing. When you pray in the Spirit, your faith is no longer theoretical, it becomes experiential. You don't just believe God can do something, you begin to sense that He already is. Think about daily life. A person may know all the rules of swimming by reading a book, but fear still grips them when they step near deep water. The moment they enter the water and earn to float, confidence begins to replace fear. Praying in the Spirit is like stepping into the water of God's presence. Faith grows because you are no longer standing on the edge, you are immersed. Many believers struggle with doubt not because they lack belief, but because their belief has not been exercised. Faith is like a muscle. If it is not used, it weakens. When you pray in the Spirit, faith is exercised naturally. You are speaking beyond logic, beyond evidence, beyond current circumstances. Each time you pray this way, your spirit becomes stronger than your situation. Look at a person facing uncertainty, waiting for a job response, a medical report, or a life-changing decision. At first, anxiety dominates the mind. Thoughts race. Worst-case scenarios repeat. But when that person begins to pray in the Spirit consistently, something shifts. The problem may still exist, but fear loses its voice. Confidence rises quietly. Faith grows not because the answer has arrived, but because the heart has been anchored. Faith grows in the Spirit because the Spirit reminds you of God's nature, not your limitations. Human thinking focuses on what has failed before. The Spirit focuses on what God has already overcome. When you pray in the Spirit, past disappointments lose their power to define your future. You stop saying, "What if it doesn't work?" and start sensing, even if it takes time, God is faithful. Daily life shows this clearly. Imagine someone learning to drive. At first, every sound feels threatening. Every turn feels risky. But the more time they spend behind the wheel, the calmer they become. Confidence grows with exposure. Praying in the Spirit exposes your heart to God's presence again and again. Fear fades because familiarity grows. Faith strengthens because trust deepens. When you pray in the Spirit, you stop borrowing faith from others and begin developing your own. Many people survive on secondhand faith, someone else's testimony, someone else's prayer, someone else's encouragement. But when pressure comes, borrowed faith collapses. Spirit-led prayer builds personal faith. You may not explain it well to others, but inside you know, I've been with God, I'm not alone. This kind of faith changes how you respond to challenges. Instead of panicking, you pause. Instead of reacting emotionally, you reflect spiritually. A difficult conversation no longer terrifies you. A setback no longer defines you. Faith becomes your default response, not fear. Praying in the Spirit also strengthens faith during waiting seasons. Waiting is where faith is often tested the most. When answers delay, people assume God is silent. But in Spirit-led prayer, waiting becomes strengthening, not weakening. Faith grows roots during silence. You learn to trust God's timing instead of demanding immediate results. Consider someone planting seeds. Nothing visible happens for days. The ground looks unchanged, but beneath the surface, growth is taking place. Praying in the Spirit works the same way. Even when you see nothing changing, faith is being built internally. And when the breakthrough comes, it doesn't shake you, it confirms you. Faith grows because the Spirit shifts your focus from outcomes to relationship. You stop praying only to get something and start praying because you trust someone. That trust becomes unshakable. Even when prayers are not answered the way you expect, your faith does not collapse. It matures in everyday struggles, raising a family, managing responsibilities, facing disappointments. Spirit-led prayer becomes a stabilizer. You may still feel tired, but you are not defeated. You may still feel stretched, but you are not broken. Faith gives you endurance, not escape. The Spirit also strengthens faith by quieting inner voices of negativity. Self-doubt often whispers, "You're not enough." Fear says, "It won't work." Past failure says, "You've tried before." But when you pray in the Spirit, another voice grows louder, the voice of assurance. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady and firm. This is the kind of faith that doesn't need constant proof. It doesn't demand signs every day. It rests, it trusts, it moves forward even when conditions are imperfect. Faith grows strong because it is no longer fighting for survival. It is rooted in communion. When you pray in the Spirit, faith stops being fragile and starts becoming resilient. It bends under pressure but does not break. It questions without collapsing. It waits without quitting. It believes without seeing, not because life is easy, but because God is near. There are struggles in life that logic cannot explain and effort cannot overcome. You try harder, you plan better, you work longer hours, yet something invisible keeps resisting your progress. It feels like pushing against a locked door with all your strength and still not moving an inch. These are not always physical problems. Many times they are spiritual barriers, limitations that exist beyond what the eyes can see. Praying in the Spirit is powerful because it does not fight visible battles, it confronts invisible resistance. In daily life, people often blame themselves when things don't change. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I don't deserve better. Maybe this is just my fate. But many times the issue is not ability, it is alignment. When you pray in the Spirit, you stop wrestling on the surface and begin addressing the root. You are no longer arguing with symptoms, you are dismantling the source. Think of a car stuck in mud. Pressing the accelerator harder only sinks it deeper. The solution is not more force, but the right angle and support. In the same way, praying with frustration and fear often deepens exhaustion. But when you pray in the Spirit, divine wisdom lifts you out of what effort alone could not fix. Suddenly, progress comes with less struggle. Spiritual barriers often show up as repeated cycles. The same type of problem keeps returning, just in different forms. The same disappointment, the same emotional pain, the same limitation. You change locations, people, strategies, but the pattern follows you. That's a barrier. And barriers don't break with motivation, they break with spiritual authority. Praying in the Spirit releases that authority quietly but effectively. Daily life reflects this truth. Imagine a person trying to open a door by pushing when the door clearly says pull. The harder they push, the more frustrated they become. When they finally pull, the door opens easily. Praying in the Spirit is learning how heaven says to move. Resistance fades not because the problem was small, but because the method was correct. When you pray in the Spirit, you confront fear at its root. Fear is one of the strongest spiritual barriers. It paralyzes decisions, delays obedience, and weakens confidence. Many people live far below their potential, not because they lack talent, but because fear has built an invisible wall around their future. Spirit-led prayer doesn't shout at fear, it dissolves it. Courage rises naturally without force. Consider someone who wants to start something new, a business, a ministry, a new chapter in life, but keeps delaying. Excuses multiply, doubts grow louder. That delay is often not laziness, it's resistance. When that person begins praying in the Spirit, clarity replaces confusion. Boldness replaces hesitation. The barrier breaks and movement begins. Praying in the Spirit also breaks emotional barriers. Past pain, betrayal, and disappointment can quietly limit how far a person allows themselves to hope. They may smile outwardly, but inside they have built walls to protect themselves. These walls feel safe, but they also block joy, connection, and growth. Spirit-led prayer softens the heart without reopening wounds. Healing begins gently, without pressure. Everyday examples prove this. A person who couldn't forgive for years suddenly feels free, not because they forced forgiveness, but because something shifted within. That shift is the Spirit removing a barrier that therapy, advice, and time alone could not fully remove. Spiritual barriers can also affect opportunities. Doors that should open remain shut. Favor seems delayed. Efforts go unnoticed. When you pray in the Spirit, God begins working beyond your reach. Conversations change. Timing aligns. People who once ignored you begin to recognize you. This is not manipulation. It is divine intervention. Imagine a radio stuck on static. No matter how loud you turn the volume, clarity doesn't come. You must adjust the frequency. Praying in the Spirit adjusts your spiritual frequency. Once aligned, messages become clear, direction becomes sharp, and resistance weakens. Another barrier the Spirit breaks is self-limitation. Many people unknowingly live under labels placed on them by others. Average, slow, not good enough. These labels form ceilings in the mind. Spirit-led prayer breaks these ceilings. You begin to see possibilities you once dismissed. You attempt things you once feared. Confidence grows without arrogance. Even in daily routines, barriers exist. A person may struggle with discipline, consistency, or motivation. They know what to do, but something always blocks follow-through. Praying in the Spirit releases inner strength. You don't suddenly become perfect, but resistance weakens. Obedience becomes easier. Focus improves. Spiritual barriers also include unseen opposition that delays answers. You may be doing everything right and still feel stuck. Praying in the Spirit engages heaven on your behalf. Battles are fought beyond your awareness. What you could not fix in months begins to shift quietly. This kind of prayer doesn't always create noise, but it creates movement. You may not feel dramatic emotion, but you will notice progress. Peace replaces frustration. Hope replaces heaviness. Confidence replaces confusion. Barriers that once felt permanent begin to crumble from within. Praying in the Spirit does not deny reality, it overcomes it. It does not ignore obstacles, it removes them. It does not fight people, it dismantles resistance. What once blocked your path becomes the place where momentum begins. Life becomes heavy when timing is wrong. Many people fail not because they lack ability, effort, or faith, but because they moved too early or waited too long. Divine timing is not about delay or speed, it is about alignment. When the Spirit leads you into divine timing, you stop fighting the clock and start flowing with purpose. You realize that rushing can be just as dangerous as standing still. In daily life, think of cooking a meal. If the fire is too high, the food burns on the outside and remains raw inside. If the fire is too low, the food never reaches its full flavor. The right heat at the right time produces the best result. In the same way, the Spirit guides you to act neither in panic nor in passivity, but with wisdom. You begin to understand that timing is not accidental, it is intentional. Many people pray for doors to open immediately without realizing that walking through too soon can destroy what God is preparing. The Spirit leads you to wait when waiting feels uncomfortable and to move when moving feels risky. That is divine timing. It often contradicts emotion, logic, and public opinion, yet it brings peace that makes no sense to the mind. Consider someone eager to prove themselves at work, in relationships, or in life goals. They speak too quickly, react too fast, commit too early. Later, they regret words spoken, decisions made, and connections rushed. When the Spirit leads your timing, restraint becomes strength. Silence becomes wisdom. You no longer feel pressured to respond immediately because you trust that the right moment will give your response power. Divine timing also protects you from unnecessary pain. Many people force relationships because loneliness is loud. They rush into commitments because they fear missing out. But the Spirit leads prayer to shape patience. Suddenly you realize that waiting is not rejection, it is preparation. The Spirit helps you sense when something is almost right but not yet ready. Everyday life reflects this. A farmer does not plant seeds in winter and expect a harvest. Even good seeds planted in the wrong season die. The Spirit teaches you seasons. You begin to recognize when to sow, when to water, and when to wait. You stop blaming yourself for lack of results and start asking whether it is the right time. Divine timing also prevents burnout. Many people exhaust themselves trying to control outcomes. They work without rest, push without pause, and strive without peace. When the Spirit leads your timing, rest becomes productive. You learn that pausing does not mean quitting. It means recalibrating. You stop measuring success by speed and start measuring it by sustainability. Think of traffic signals in daily commuting. Running a red light may save a minute, but it risks everything. Waiting for the green light may feel slow, but it keeps you safe. The Spirit acts like that signal in life. Sometimes He says stop, not because the destination is wrong, but because the intersection is dangerous. Sometimes He says go, even when others hesitate, because the path is clear. Divine timing sharpens discernment. You begin to sense when to speak and when to listen, when to invest and when to withdraw, when to hold on and when to release. This sensitivity does not come from overthinking, it comes from Spirit-led prayer. You stop asking, why is this taking so long? And start asking, what is being prepared right now? The Spirit also leads you to divine timing and opportunities. Many opportunities look good but are not God. Without spiritual guidance, people chase every open door and end up scattered. When the Spirit leads, you gain the courage to say no to good things to protect the best thing. You understand that not every opportunity deserves your energy. In daily responsibilities, family, career, personal growth, the Spirit helps you prioritize. You stop trying to fix everything at once. You learn to address one season at a time. This reduces anxiety and increases effectiveness. You feel lighter because you are no longer carrying tomorrow's burden today. Divine timing builds trust within you. Waiting seasons teach you patience without bitterness. Moving seasons teach you boldness without arrogance. You stop comparing your timeline with others because the Spirit assures you that your path is uniquely designed. You realize that delayed does not mean denied, and fast does not always mean favored. The Spirit also helps you recognize when a season has ended. Many people stay too long because they fear change. They cling to comfort even when growth has stopped. Divine timing gives you the courage to let go without resentment. You leave with gratitude, not regret. Even setbacks begin to make sense under divine timing. Missed opportunities, closed doors, and delays are no longer interpreted as failures. They become redirections. You start noticing that what didn't happen protected you from something you couldn't see. Peace replaces frustration because you trust the one who sees the full picture. When the Spirit leads your timing, you are no longer driven by urgency or fear. You move with clarity, confidence, and calm. Decisions feel lighter. Waiting feels purposeful. Action feels anointed. You stop forcing life to cooperate and begin cooperating with the rhythm of heaven, where nothing is rushed, nothing is wasted, and nothing arrives too late. Supernatural peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of stability when problems refuse to leave. Many people assume peace comes after everything is fixed, after answers arrive, after situations change. But spiritual peace works in the opposite direction. It shows up before the breakthrough, stands guard during uncertainty, and keeps the heart from collapsing under pressure. When you pray in the Spirit, peace does not wait for permission from circumstances. It takes authority over them. In daily life, stress often enters quietly. A message goes unanswered. A deadline approaches. A relationship feels uncertain. A bill arrives unexpectedly. The mind starts racing, replaying worst-case scenarios. But when supernatural peace guards your heart, the mind may notice the problem, yet the heart refuses to panic. You still think clearly. You still breathe deeply. You still sleep at night. That calm is not denial, it is protection. Think about a security guard standing at a gate. Not everything is allowed to enter. Chaos may knock, fear may shout, anxiety may demand attention, but peace decides what gets access. When you pray in the Spirit, peace becomes that guard. Not every thought is entertained, not every worry is welcomed. The heart remains protected even when the world feels unstable. Everyday examples make this real. A parent hears troubling news about their child. Naturally, fear tries to take control. But instead of spiraling, a quiet assurance settles in. Tears may come, concern may remain, but panic does not dominate. That is supernatural peace guarding the heart, allowing love and wisdom to lead instead of fear. Supernatural peace also shows up at work. Pressure increases, expectations rise, mistakes happen. Without peace, people become reactive, defensive, and exhausted. With Spirit-given peace, responses become measured, decisions become thoughtful. You don't ignore responsibility, but you also don't let pressure dictate your worth. Peace keeps you grounded when performance is being evaluated. This peace does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never meant for you to hold. Many people live with constant inner tension because they try to control outcomes they were never assigned to manage. Praying in the Spirit releases that burden. Peace whispers, do your part, and trust the rest. In relationships, supernatural peace is especially powerful. When misunderstandings arise, peace prevents emotional explosions. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause. Instead of assuming the worst, you seek clarity. Peace does not silence truth, it delivers it without destruction. Conversations become healthier because the heart is not under attack. Daily routines also reveal the power of guarded peace. Traffic delays, long queues, small inconveniences often steal joy. Without peace, irritation grows quickly. With Spirit-led peace, patience increases. You realize that not every delay is an emergency, not every interruption is an insult. Life slows down just enough for perspective to return. Supernatural peace guards the heart during waiting seasons. Waiting is one of the greatest tests of faith. Answers feel slow. Progress feels invisible. Without peace, waiting becomes torment. With peace, waiting becomes purposeful. You may still desire change, but desperation no longer rules. Peace stabilizes hope so it does not collapse under time. Consider someone awaiting medical results. The mind wants immediate certainty. Fear imagines every possibility. But peace settles in and says, today you are held. That peace doesn't promise instant answers, it promises inner safety. The heart remains steady even while the mind waits. Peace also guards the heart from comparison. In a world constantly displaying success, progress, and achievement, many feel left behind. Peace reminds you that timelines differ. Journeys are unique. You stop measuring your life against someone else's highlights. Contentment grows not because ambition dies, but because envy loses its grip. Supernatural peace is not fragile. It is resilient. It stays during disappointment. It remains during conflict. It holds during uncertainty. This peace does not depend on favorable news. It exists because the Spirit is present. That presence reassures the heart even when explanations are missing. In moments of decision, peace becomes guidance. When choices look equally good on the surface, peace leans you toward what aligns deeper. When something looks attractive but disrupts peace, restraint follows. You begin to trust peace as a signal, not an emotion. This peace also guards the heart from self-condemnation. Many people replay past mistakes endlessly, punishing themselves internally. Spirit-led peace interrupts that cycle. It allows reflection without shame, growth without guilt, learning without self-hatred. Supernatural peace does not shout. It settles. It doesn't rush. It rests. It allows the heart to remain soft in a hard world and stable in unstable seasons. Even when questions remain unanswered, peace keeps the heart from being overwhelmed, reminding it quietly that it is not alone, not forgotten, not unprotected. There is a moment in every life when a situation looks so closed, so final, so immovable that even hope feels tired. People may encourage you, logic may advise you, but deep inside you know this is beyond human ability. These are the moments we label as impossible. Yet impossible situations are not meant to destroy you, they are meant to define you. When you pray in the Spirit, what once looked like an ending slowly transforms into a testimony. Impossible situations often begin quietly. A dream stalls, a relationship breaks, a diagnosis shocks, a financial plan collapses. At first, the heart resists accepting reality, then fear tries to settle in. But Spirit-led prayer changes the internal atmosphere. You may not see the solution yet, but you stop drowning in despair. Something inside you says, this will not be the final chapter. Daily life shows this clearly. Think of someone who loses a job unexpectedly. At first, panic takes over. Bills don't pause. Responsibilities don't disappear. But as that person begins to pray in the Spirit, strength replaces panic. New ideas emerge. Old skills awaken. Unexpected connections appear. Months later, they look back and realize the loss forced them into growth they never would have chosen voluntarily. Impossible situations become testimonies because the Spirit reframes perspective. What you once saw as punishment begins to reveal itself as preparation. You realize that comfort would have kept you small, but pressure expanded your capacity. Testimonies are not born from easy seasons. They are shaped in moments when quitting felt logical. Consider someone battling a long-standing habit or inner struggle. Advice failed, willpower weakened, promises were broken repeatedly, but Spirit-led prayer works where effort failed. Change doesn't happen overnight, but resistance weakens. One day they notice, I didn't fall back this time. That quiet victory becomes a testimony, not of personal strength, but of spiritual transformation. Impossible situations also test identity. When things go wrong, people often ask, what did I do wrong? Or why me? The Spirit shifts that question to, what is being built in me? That shift turns suffering into substance. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start recognizing yourself as a carrier of resilience. In everyday relationships, impossible situations show up as broken trust, deep misunderstandings, or emotional distance. It may seem easier to walk away hardened than to stay open, but Spirit-led prayer heals without erasing boundaries. Forgiveness begins where bitterness once lived. Wisdom grows where confusion dominated. The relationship may not return to what it was, but you emerge healthier, clearer, and stronger. Impossible situations become testimonies because they reveal hidden strength. Many people underestimate themselves until Ife pushes them beyond comfort. A single parent learns endurance they never imagined. A caregiver discovers patience they didn't know they had. A student facing repeated failure develops persistence that later defines success. The Spirit also turns delays into testimonies. Waiting feels like stagnation, but often it is construction. While nothing seems to move externally, foundations are being laid internally. Character is strengthened, discernment is sharpened, faith is matured. Later, when the breakthrough arrives, you realize you were not being denied, you were being developed. Daily examples confirm this. A person waits years for stability, only to realize that the waiting taught them discipline, gratitude, and humility. When success finally comes, it doesn't ruin them, it refines them. Their testimony becomes not just about receiving, but about becoming. Impossible situations expose what truly matters. When everything feels unstable, superficial priorities fall away. You begin valuing peace over appearance, integrity over approval, growth over comfort. That clarity becomes part of the testimony. You no longer chase everything, you choose wisely. The Spirit also transforms pain into purpose. What hurts you deeply often becomes the place you help others most effectively. Someone who survived betrayal becomes a guide for healing. Someone who endured loss becomes a voice of comfort. Someone who faced scarcity becomes generous with wisdom. Your story gains meaning because it gains direction. Impossible situations do not disappear instantly, but they lose authority. You stop asking, "How will this work?" and start trusting that it will. Hope becomes steady instead of fragile. Faith becomes resilient instead of reactive. Testimonies are not always loud miracles. Many are quiet transformations. The anxiety that no longer controls you, the courage that replaces fear, the peace that remains despite uncertainty. These inner victories matter just as much as visible breakthroughs. When you pray in the Spirit, impossible situations stop being threats and start becoming witnesses. They witness your growth. They witness your endurance. They witness your trust. And one day when you speak about what you survived, others will hear hope in your voice. Not because life was easy, but because the impossible did not have the final word. There comes a moment when you must realize that prayer is not just something you do when life falls apart. It is how you live above it. This journey of praying in the Spirit is not about becoming religious. It is about becoming rooted, fearless, and unshakable. You are no longer reacting to life. You are responding from a higher place. What once overwhelmed you no longer owns you because you now carry a strength that circumstances cannot touch. Remember this truth. You were never created to survive by effort alone. You were created to thrive by divine connection. When you pray in the Spirit, heaven does not simply hear you. Heaven partners with you. You stop praying from desperation and start praying from authority. You stop asking, "Can this change?" and begin declaring, "This will not remain the same." There is a famous truth that says, what you see on the outside is a reflection of what you believe on the inside. When the Spirit shapes your inner world, the outer world must eventually respond. You may not see immediate change, but never confuse silence with absence. God works most deeply when he works quietly. The roots grow in darkness before the tree appears in daylight. Let this settle in your spirit. Delay is not denial. Waiting is not weakness. Silence is not abandonment. Often the longest waiting seasons produce the strongest believers. The Spirit is not just preparing the answer. He is preparing you to carry it. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are being aligned. Every prayer you whispered when no one saw, every tear you wiped when no one understood, every step you took when faith felt heavy, none of it was wasted. Heaven keeps perfect records. There is a saying that rings true. Faith does not need proof, it needs trust. And trust grows when you walk daily with the Spirit. That is why fear begins to lose its voice. That is why peace guards your heart. That is why impossible situations start turning into testimonies, not because life suddenly became easy, but because you became anchored. When storms come, and they will, you will not ask, "Why me?" You will say, "I know who is with me." When doors close, you will not collapse, you will discern. When answers delay, you will not panic, you will prepare. This is the posture of someone led by the Spirit. Never forget this powerful truth. God does not reveal the full picture. Weaken your faith. He reveals it step by step to strengthen it. If you could see everything at once, you would rely on sight instead of trust. But now you walk not by what you see, but by who leads you. One day you will look back at this season and realize it was not meant to break you. It was meant to build you. What once made you cry will one day make you testify. What once confused you will one day guide someone else. What once felt impossible will become the evidence that God is faithful. So rise with quiet confidence. Pray with spiritual boldness. Walk with unshakable peace. Let your life declare what your lips may not always say, that God is real, God is near, and God is at work. And when people ask how you remained strong, how you stayed calm, how you kept believing, your life itself will answer louder than words ever could.